What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we are checking out the Bugera 6262 by Bugera. Gonna be a good one. Let's do it! Alright, hope you guys are doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and what I do is I take awesome high-gain amplifiers, guitar cabinets, speakers, overdrives, pickups, and pedals. I record them with a simple SM57 setup, and I give you guys the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into E-standard thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and dudes that are basically so tired that they're delirious, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing on your way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks. So today, guys, we are taking a look at the Bugera 6262. Shut up! We're taking a look at the Bugera 6262. It's tasteless to laugh or at your own jokes, isn't it? Is that camera even working? It sure wasn't, so I guess it's a good thing that I checked. All right, guys, I have ran through a million amps in the last few days, and I am just kind of on the edge of sanity here at this point, so please bear with me if you can. I'm probably gonna be a little goofy in this episode and maybe the next one too, because I think I still have one more to go before the week's over. So the riff essence is almost completely depleted at this point. The 6262 is essentially a ripoff of the PV5152 or 6505 Plus. Main differences being that it has reverb and that it has no resonance control. This is also one of the Infinium models, which features the Infinium technology, which essentially means it's self-biasing. You can stick any power tube, you could stick 4 different power tubes in there, and Bugera claims that these amps will bias them properly and it will not harm your amp in any way. I honestly have tested this by sticking 4 different types of power tubes in the amp and running it for a while. Seemed to work okay. Didn't feel comfortable doing it a long time, so I took them out. We have the stock Bugera tubes in this thing, so I would imagine that it would probably sound a little bit better if we put some higher quality like Russian tubes in it or something, as the Bugeras are known to be pretty low quality Chinese tubes, but for all intents and purposes, it sounds okay as it is now. I'm gonna go on my little goofy Bugera rant again here, where I'm going to say I don't originally know why they chose to clone the 5150 and 5152 amps, because at the time that they did this, it was like the late 2000s. You could buy those amps on the used market for $400 to $500 all day long. These amps debuted at $500, or I believe this one's like $550, or it was $550 back then, brand new. So they were competing, trying to sell a brand new amp to a market that bought mostly used gear anyways, and you could find the real deal American-made 5150 for the same price or less than one of these brand new. So a little bit of a goofy strategy, but you know what? They seem to have kind of gained some weird cult popularity in the budget gear circles. There are people who absolutely love budget gear. That initial clip, I had my Electric Eye Mud Killer on. We were on the lead channel of this amp. I was using my Bugera Typhon. This is the prototype model. It has the Hypernova high output pickups in it. I also have a guitar over here with Fishman Fluence Moderns in it, and I have my good old Les Paul Studio that is tuned to drop C. And I have my good old Les Paul Studio that's tuned to drop C. So we'll hear a couple different things. We're gonna go over to the crunch channel, because the crunch channel on this amp actually has quite a bit more gain than a 5152 or a 6505 Plus has from the factory. So I was actually getting some really good usable high gain tones out of the crunch channel, which normally I can't do on the 5152 or 6505 Plus, because that's a lot more tame in the gain than the original one is. Okay, so we're on the crunch channel. Everything's at noon. I'm turning that boost off. We've got the gain down at 9 o'clock. Here's how it sounds. All right, so pretty weak like that, but once you get this gain up to around noon and higher, it actually tends to get pretty saturated. Okay, so we're just gonna keep pumping that up because you guys are not here for the dad rock riffs. Sorry, I was a little out of tune, but you guys get the picture. So as it's dialed right now with the presence around noon and the EQ like this, it's a little bit lackluster, honestly. It definitely needs some brightening up. So we'll add some mids, we'll add some presence. And just like that, the channel kind of comes alive quite a bit more. Let's keep pushing that gain up. It's getting there, but it's still just not quite saturated enough to do the high gain thing for my taste. I even like my gain a little bit more on the drier side than a lot of people do. And still, that's not enough for me, so let's bump it all the way up. Pretty dead sounding with the gain turned up that much. It's kind of muddy. We could probably get some more low end, but at the same time, as it's running right now, it's just a little bit flat and a little bit muffled sounding. But again, this is the crunch channel. This is not the lead channel. So it's definitely got a tubby low end thing going on. Let's go ahead, let's kick that mud killer back in and see what type of stuff we can get from the mud killer. I've got the compression and the clipping turned off, so it's really not gonna add all that much. It's just gonna mainly tighten things out. Out, up, something, words. So yeah, still kind of dead sounding. Let's turn that compression, let's turn that clipping on, and let's turn the fat knob up a little bit. So that sounds pretty good. It's got a little bit of a goofiness to the low end on it, where it sounds a little bit soft. It's even with the mud killer, which tends to tighten and compress the low end and make it punchy. Just not really hitting. It's not punching. I'm gonna turn the mud killer off and engage the TS9. We will try a more standard style boost that a lot more people are gonna be familiar with. So that seems to bring some of the brightness back in. I actually feel like I need to roll the mids and the highs back just a tad and maybe bring the low end up to compensate, but that actually almost suits this amp a little bit better than the mud killer does on this channel. was literally just playing random stuff there, but you get the picture. So overall, it tightens up a little bit better. It's got a decent amount of saturation. It just kind of seems to be missing some of the, I don't know, the percussiveness that you'll find on the lead channel. So turning the presence up and the treble down has actually kind of just pulled the blanket off the speakers a little bit, and it almost seems like the low end is reacting a little bit better with the presence frequencies being pushed versus the treble. So we're going to try one more riff like that before we go over to the lead channel. All right, so still, that helped for sure, but it still has a little bit more of like a thuddy low end as opposed to that nice tight percussive low end that you're used to from a 5150 or 6505 Plus. So let's go ahead, take this over to the lead channel because that's pretty much where everybody's gonna be using it anyways. Okay guys, lead channel, gain at 9 o'clock, all other EQs at noon, presence at noon. Here's what we got. So, as you can tell, it's a little bit muffled on the top end. It's definitely far more compressed, and it seems like we're a good bit quieter, but I think once we add some treble and some mids, that'll kind of bring the blanket off the speakers. Let's also add some presence. So yeah, as of right now, it's a little bit on the dry side. That gain comes on really quick though. So let's go from 2 to 3 on the dial. Same riff. So just like that, we've got pretty much just enough saturation to get what we would want to get out of it. I'm going to show you guys the sweep of the presence because much like the 5150, the presence knob doesn't really do much until you get all the way up. So we're gonna dial it all the way back. So it's like once you get past 7 is where it kind of starts to have an effect, and then above 8 is where it gets overly bright. But yeah, so I'm gonna dial those trebles back. I'm gonna dial the treble back. I also feel like in the EQ section, I could be wrong here, but the bass frequencies or the bass pots seem to operate at a different frequency than they would on the 5150 or 6505. When you turn the bass up on the 5150 or 6505, it kind of just gets fuller, but it doesn't really affect like the tightness of the amp. But on this, it seems like it adds kind of like a thuddy low mid frequency that just doesn't work very well without a boost, in my opinion. If I'm going to start pushing the bass on the Bugera stuff, I'm definitely going to want an overdrive to tighten up those low and low mid frequencies. Because here, when you push them up, it gets kind of thuddy instead of just getting fuller like it would on the regular 5150. All right, so sounding pretty good as is, and we've only got the gain at 3. Let's push it up to 4. So yeah, as you push that gain up, the overall signal starts to get a lot fuller. Once you kind of go past that 4 into the 5, 6 territory on the dial, it starts to muddy up a little bit though. Actually, at 5, that doesn't sound too bad with this particular guitar. It sounds pretty good. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bump the treble back up just a little bit because it's filling out the amp a little bit more as the gain gets turned up. So not bad. I'm going to pull that gain back. I'm going to kick the tube screamer back in again. We'll play a couple more riffs and then I'll grab the Fishman guitar. Wow, the lead channel really reacts kind of crazy to kicking a boost in front of the amp. The TS9 really doesn't even have that much output, but it just seriously like pushed the amp so much. There's so much more saturation as soon as I kick that thing in. So let's turn that gain back up now that we have no boost in front. So like that, it's just got a ton of mids, dude. Ton of mids. These pickups are kind of known for having a Cocteau mid sound, so I'm pulling the mids back, up in the treble, up in the bass. All right, so that's a little bit too much for me. The active setting on these pickups doesn't really do a lot, but for me personally. But let's try the passive setting. Yeah, I'm gonna kick in a boost on this passive setting of the Fishmans, and then we'll do drop C and we'll call it a day. All right, I like that. That sounds really good. So passive mode on the Fishmans, TS9 in front of the lead channel. That sounds pretty good. Rolling the presence back definitely made a big difference. But last but not least, drop C, we'll call it a day. All right, guys, O2 Les Paul Studio with the stock 498T in the bridge. And drop C, I have touched nothing on the amp. All right, so besides being out of tune because this guitar needs badly intonated, it's really fat, really noisy, lots of gain. We're gonna pull the gain back, actually. I'm gonna pull the bass back, bump those mids up, bump the highs up. Man, it may be the stock tubes or something, but there's just really something messy sounding about that. I'm really not digging that at all. Pretty sloppy. I'm just gonna call it there because it just doesn't sound good. Really messy. I'm gonna pull the highs back just a tad. Maybe we'll pull the gain down just a little bit more. Let's try the Electric Eye Mud Killer instead because this seems to be adding some high frequencies on the TS9 that don't sound good. Just not sounding good to me. It's super noisy. I don't know why, but tuning down to drop C apparently brought out some really odd noises. This guitar usually sounds really good in drop C, other than the fact that the weather changed recently here and I need to re-intonate it. But yeah, that's gonna do it for me today, guys. What did you think of the big Bugera? What did you guys think of the Bugera 6262? Do you think it is a nice budget option, even though it's pretty much a direct ripoff of a PV5152? Or do you think that it sounds kind of like doo-doo? I'm curious. In the room, in certain settings with certain overdrives and everything, I actually thought it sounded really good. Through this amp and drop C, I was not a huge fan of it, but what did you guys hear on your end that I did not hear on my end? Always curious to see what you guys think, so please leave your comments down in the comments of the video, where comments go. In the description of this video are all of my support links, including my Sweetwater affiliate link. Go to Sweetwater, grab yourself something nice. I get a little kickback in return. It greatly helps this channel out, helps keep the lights on here because this is what I do full time. Also consider becoming a member of the Belligerent Amateur community by joining my Discord server and my Facebook group, linked below. Would love to have you guys around. Thanks so much for watching. Hope that you guys found this video helpful. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time.